An old man stands at the edge of a river in the dark, and his hands will not stop shaking. The wind comes off the water and pulls at his robe. Behind him, the city of Babylon is asleep, the greatest city the world has ever built, its walls so wide a chariot can turn around on top of them. But the old man is not looking at the city. He is looking at nothing. His face has gone gray, the color of ash, and the men who serve him have learned not to speak when he looks like this. His name is Daniel, and by the end of this, you are going to understand why his hands are shaking. He was carried here as a captive when he was young, and he is not young anymore. He has served kings. He has read the writing on the wall. And tonight, in the first year of a king named Belshazzar, he has seen something in his sleep that he cannot put down. He saw the sea at night, churning, and a great wind tearing across it. And out of that black water, one after another, came 4 beasts. Picture them with him as you read, because you are going to meet every one. Not animals you could name in a field, things. A lion that grew the wings of an eagle. A bear, lopsided, risen up on one side, with ribs clenched in its teeth. A leopard with 4 wings on its back and 4 heads, all watching at once. And then a 4th. And here Daniel's words run out, because the 4th had no name in the animal kingdom at all. It had iron teeth. It crushed and it stamped. And on its head grew a little horn, a small thing, with the eyes of a man and a mouth that would not stop boasting. Stay with me, because here is what you need to know before we go one step further. This is not a story about monsters. This is not a story about a nightmare. This is not a story about something that happened far away and long ago and has nothing to do with you. An angel stood in that vision and told Daniel exactly what the beasts were, in one sentence, and that sentence is the key to everything that follows. These great beasts, which are 4 kings. Kingdoms, empires, powers that would rise out of the sea of nations, one after another, in order, and every single one of them would arrive on the world stage exactly where the vision said it would. 4 beasts, then a horn, and later, in another vision given to another exile on another shore, 2 more beasts would come up out of the world, until the line of them reaches all the way down to the map you are standing on right now. And here's the part I want you to hold on to. The last beast in this whole sequence does not roar like a lion. It does not charge like a bear. When it finally comes up, it has 2 little horns, soft ones, and it looks for all the world like a lamb. Gentle, harmless, familiar, and that is exactly the problem. We will get to that lamb, but not yet. Start with the lion. In the vision it comes up first, a lion with the wings of an eagle, and as Daniel watches, the wings are torn off, and the beast is lifted up onto 2 feet and given the heart of a man. Hold that image, because it is a portrait, and the man it describes really lived. The lion is Babylon, the same Babylon sleeping behind Daniel as he stands by the river. And the king who built it, Nebuchadnezzar, was the lion with eagle's wings, the fastest, fiercest empire the world had yet seen, swooping down on nation after nation the way an eagle drops out of the sky. There is a second vision in this same book where the very same empires show up as a great statue made of 4 metals, and Babylon is the head of it. Gold. The prophet says it to the king's own face, "Thou art this head of gold." 2 pictures, one meaning, a beast and a statue, both pointing you at the same throne. But watch what happens to the lion. The wings get plucked. The proud eagle is set down on the ground and made to stand like a man, and a man's heart is put in it. If you know the story, you know why. There was a season when Nebuchadnezzar's pride swelled until he lost his reason, and the most powerful man on earth went out and lived in the open fields like an animal, his hair grown long, his nails like claws, until the day he lifted his eyes to heaven and his mind came back to him. The wings clipped. The heart of a man returned. The Bible is not guessing at history here. It is describing a real king who actually broke, and was actually humbled, and actually came home to his throne a different man. You can read his own confession of it in his own words, a few pages later. Here's what most people miss. Daniel is seeing all of this in the days of Babylon. The lion is still on the throne. The gold is still on the head of the statue. And the angel is already telling him, in detail, that it will fall and what will take its place. So watch the second beast, a bear, and it is not standing square. It is raised up higher on one side than the other, lopsided, off balance, and in its mouth, 3 ribs. Arise, the voice says, devour much flesh. The bear is Medo-Persia, 2 nations yoked into one empire, and one of them was always the stronger. The Mede and the Persian came up together, but the Persian side rose higher. That is the bear lifted up on one side, drawn on a wall of vision centuries before Cyrus the Persian ever marched a single soldier. And the 3 ribs clenched in its teeth are the 3 great conquests that fed it and made it fat: Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. Devour much flesh. Count them off as you go. 3 ribs, 3 nations. It did exactly that. Now think about what you are watching. The lion named the empire that already was. The bear named the empire that would swallow it next. And the prophecy was right both times, written down while the lion was still breathing. If you had been standing next to Daniel, you would have had no way to check him. You would have had to wait for the centuries to prove him out. They did. But it gets stranger, because the third beast moves faster than anything in the vision so far. A leopard, already the quickest cat alive, and this one has 4 wings on its back. Speed stacked on top of speed. And it does not have 1 head, it has 4. The leopard is Greece. And if you had to choose one word for Alexander the Great, it would be fast. He conquered the known world before he was 30, moving so quickly that his enemies could not form a battle line before he was already through them and gone. 4 wings on a leopard's back. And then, at the very height of it, he died. A young man, 32 years old, fever-struck in Babylon of all places, with no heir who could hold what he had taken. His empire did not pass cleanly to a son. It tore itself into pieces among his generals, and when the fighting settled, it had divided into 4 kingdoms. 4 of his commanders carving up the map, north and south and east and west. Watch the precision of it. Not 3, not 5. The leopard in the vision had exactly 4 heads, and the empire of Alexander broke into exactly 4 pieces. You can put the vision and the history map side by side, and they match. Here is the word worth knowing. In John's later vision, creatures like these are called pharion in Greek. Not a tame animal, not livestock, but a wild, predatory thing. And in Daniel's own language, in the Aramaic he wrote this chapter in, the word is shava, beast. And that choice matters. Daniel wrote chapter 7 not in Hebrew, his mother tongue, but in Aramaic, the diplomatic language of the empires, the language kings used to speak to one another across borders. He told the story of the world's governments in the world's own official tongue. That was on purpose. 3 beasts so far, 3 empires. Babylon, then Medo-Persia, then Greece. Each one named, in order, before it came to power. And we have not even reached the strangest beast of all. Stop for 1 second and feel the weight of what is happening here. 3 empires, called by name in the right order, centuries before the last 2 of them existed. Babylon was on the throne when Daniel wrote it down, and the bear and the leopard were still nothing but shapes in the dark of a dream. This is not history written after the fact. This is the future, read out loud in advance, and then the world walked into it 1 kingdom at a time, right on cue. If that is landing on you the way it lands on me, Do me a small favor. Subscribe so the next one of these finds you when it goes up. And leave one word in the comments. The name of the beast that has surprised you most so far. I read them. Then come right back, because the fourth beast is where this stops being ancient history and starts becoming a map of your own century, the one you are living in right now. The fourth beast is the one Daniel could not describe. He had words for the others: a lion, a bear, a leopard. But when the fourth came up out of the sea, he reached for the animal kingdom and came back with nothing. Dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces and stamped whatever was left under its feet. And it was different from all the beasts before it, bigger, harder, colder. Where the others were wild animals, this one was a machine. The fourth beast is Rome. And go back to that statue of 4 metals for a moment, because the metals agree with the beasts down to the detail. Gold, then silver, then brass, and then 2 legs of iron. Iron. The very word Daniel uses for the teeth of the fourth beast. Rome was the Iron Empire, the one that did not so much rule the world as crush it into a single shape and hold it there by force. It outlasted every empire before it. It was still standing, an iron boot on the neck of the known world, on the night a child was born in Bethlehem, under a Roman tax, in a town watched by a Roman governor, in a province where Rome alone decided who lived and who died. You already know that night. You have sung about it. And you may never have noticed that the empire in the background of the manger is the fourth beast of Daniel's dream. But the beast itself is not where the vision lingers. Watch its head. On the fourth beast there were 10 horns, and as Daniel watched, a little one came up among them, small, almost easy to miss. And this little horn had 2 things none of the others had. It had eyes, like the eyes of a man, and it had a mouth speaking great things. Pay attention to this, because the angel does not rush past it, and neither should you. Of everything in the whole vision, 4 empires, 10 horns, the rise and fall of the civilized world. The part the angel spends the most time explaining is this one small horn. It is the center of gravity. It is what the dream was really about. So if you remember one beast out of this whole vision, the angel would have you remember this one. Listen to what it does. It comes up after the 10, and it is different in kind from the plain political kingdoms around it. It speaks great words against the Most High. It wears out the saints of the Most High. Wears them out, the way water wears down stone. Not in one blow, but slowly, patiently, over a very long time. It thinks to change times and laws, to put its own hand on the things of God. And then comes the line that sets the clock for this whole prophecy. The saints would be given into its hand for a time and times and the dividing of time. Hold that phrase, because it is a measurement. A time, in this kind of prophecy, is a year. Times is 2. The dividing of time is half. A year plus 2 years plus half a year. 3.5 prophetic times. And in the language of this book, where a day in vision stands for a year in history, that span comes out to 1,260 years. Not a weekend, not a generation. 1,260 years of one power that would rise out of the broken pieces of Rome, speak for God while it stood against him, and wear down the faithful across the single longest stretch of time in the whole prophecy. Here's the part nobody tells you. The vision gives you a number you can actually check. It tells you how long this horn would hold its power, which means there has to be a beginning, and there has to be an end. And if this prophecy is what it claims to be, then somewhere in the real calendar of real history, you should be able to put your finger on the year the clock started, and the year it ran out. Stay with me, because it ran out on a date you can look up. The clock started in a year the history books remember for a siege. In the year 538, after the last of the barbarian powers that had been choking Rome was finally cleared away, the Bishop of Rome stepped into the empty space the emperors had left behind. No longer just a church office, but a power that could command kings. That is the beginning. Set your finger there. Then count forward the span the angel gave Daniel, 1260 years, and your finger lands on a year that almost no one thinks of as prophecy, but should. 1798. In February of that year, a French general named Louis-Alexandre Berthier marched an army into Rome. He was Napoleon's man, and on the 20th of that month, he walked into the palace and placed the Pope, Pius VI, under arrest. They carried the old man out of his own city as a prisoner, hauled him over the Alps through one French town after another, and the following year he died in exile, in a fortress in a country that was not his own. The power that had spoken and reigned for 1260 years was, in a single stroke, struck down, captured, carried off. Finished, the whole world assumed. 1260 years, 538 to 1798. The clock the prophet set running by a river in Babylon ran out on a date you can find in any history of Napoleon. That is the modern hinge of this whole vision. Not a symbol, not a guess, a documented event standing exactly where an exile said a span would end. You can hold a calendar in one hand and a prophecy in the other, and watch them line up to the year. Now go to the other vision, the one John saw on a prison island centuries after Daniel died. John sees a beast rise up out of the sea, and it is a strange creature. It has the leopard's body, the bear's feet, the lion's mouth, all the old beasts gathered into one. And John notices something on its head. One of its heads, he says, had a wound as it were to death. A deadly wound. The exact thing that happened in 1798. But read the next line, because this is where it stops being history and starts being now. And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Healed. The wound everyone thought was fatal closes back up. The power that was carried off as a prisoner does not stay buried. And the world, John says, goes wondering after it again. And then, stay with me, because this is the beast we have been waiting for since the very first minute. John looks again, and he sees another beast. Not from the sea this time. This one comes up out of the earth. And it does not look like any of the monsters that came before it. It has no iron teeth. It does not devour. It comes up quietly, in open country, and it has two horns. Two little horns, like the horns of a lamb. A lamb. The gentlest animal in all of Scripture. The very picture the Bible uses for Christ himself. This is the beast that does not roar. This is the beast that does not charge. This is the beast that does not even look like a beast. It looks young. It looks free. It looks innocent. A power rising up not out of the crowded old world of Europe, but out of open, empty ground, right around the time the old clock was running out. And for a while, it sounds as good as it looks. You would trust it. That is the whole point of how it was drawn. But John keeps watching. And he writes one more line, and it is the line that should make the hair stand up on your arms. And he spake as a dragon. The lamb opens its mouth, and out comes the voice of the dragon. You hear the wool, and underneath it you hear the serpent. And John has already told you, earlier in his book, exactly who the dragon is. That old serpent called the devil and Satan. Behind every beast in this whole long line, behind the lion, behind the iron, behind the boasting horn, behind even the gentle-looking lamb, there has been one voice the entire time. That is the one we are living in now. Not a far-off empire, not a monster out on the horizon. A power that looks like freedom and speaks like something else, standing on the very ground beneath your feet, in the very century you were born into. You do not have to imagine it the way you imagined the lion. You can look up from this and see it. Daniel saw the beginning. You are standing in the end of it. So let me leave you with 3 things to carry out of this. The first is simple, and it is the foundation for everything else. The beasts are not myths. They are kingdoms. The angel said so in plain words, and every one of them arrived exactly where the vision said it would. Babylon, then Medo-Persia, then Greece, then Rome, then the long power that rose out of Rome's ruins and held its place for 1260 years, down to the very year it lost its grip. You watched each one get named before it came. 4 empires and a horn, written in advance, and history walked into all of it on schedule. A book that can tell you the future that accurately is not a book you can afford to read casually. The second is closer to home. You are not waiting for the last beast. You are standing on it. The lamb that speaks like a dragon is not a prophecy about your great-grandchildren. It came up out of the ground in the very era the old clock ran out, and it is speaking now. Which means the question this vision asks is not, when will all of this happen? It is, whose voice am I actually listening to? The dragon learned a long time ago that he gets further sounding like a lamb than he ever did roaring like a lion. And the third is the one I want you to fall asleep thinking about tonight. Daniel watched every one of these beasts rise, but that is not where his vision ended. It ended with a throne, and one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven, and a kingdom handed not to a beast, but to the people of the Most High. A kingdom, the angel said, which shall not be left to other people. Every empire in this vision was taken from someone and given to someone else. Every single one. Except the last. The last kingdom never changes hands again. It is the one beast-free kingdom in the whole vision, and it is the one that wins. The same hand that wrote the empires wrote the ending, and the ending is not a beast. The ending is a throne, and a kingdom that no one can ever take from you. So tell me in the comments, out of all of them, which beast surprised you the most? And did you already know where the last one was pointing? I read every one. And the next time someone shows you something that looks like a lamb, get close enough to hear it speak.